I would say the overall kind of theme of today is to point out potential opportunities. I think that's the biggest key for what we're trying to say is like none of this is just line in the sand, line here, sell here, buy here type of type of play. It really is. It's a little bit subjective, but it kind of points you in the right direction on where the market's leaning, and it kind of gives you those opportunities where it could be relatively low risk for huge rewards. Um, I don't know if that's a good way of saying it, but that's kind of the way that I've have thought about it.
Well, no, I think that's great. And this is just like further iterations of the stuff that stuff that Banks has been looking at, stuff that I've been looking at, and really it's not anything new. I think what we're excited about is a easier way to communicate about it. Like just some simple like rule of thumb things to apply. So like I know that in the past we've talked about gaining levels and losing levels, and a lot of you guys are down that rabbit hole and working on that, which is a fantastic way to view market structure. But there's a lot of nuance to that that can be challenging. To nail down. And if you're like gaining levels, losing levels, I don't understand. Like, kind of, it's basically like a dynamic way of viewing support and resistance effectively. And what we're kind of at least sort of advocating for as maybe an intermediate step is to be mindful of larger picture places um, where sellers would have obviously had to put their foot down. And that can be found in the form of like swing highs and swing lows, right? And we're not saying you got to get down to the nitty gritty and like be perfect about that, right? Like it's very clear and apparent, and that's the wrong tool. Like let's just walk through this chart. So, um, and we'll break it down on a larger time frame, and then we'll look at some of these examples on a smaller time frame. We'll just talk about the places you would have struggled, the places that would have been hard, the places that would have worked out. But the idea being that like let's just start at this swing high that came in during RTH. This is an RTH high. It's a high a day from regular trading hours. It's also a swing high. Um, Slightly peaking above. I think slightly peaking above this was a euro high, so this was a euro session high that hadn't been tested. Now, one piece of nuance to this is sweeping. I would say, Banks, you could input here as well. Sweeping like a euro high or a Asia high that's not been swept, those moves, right? They present potential, areas of potential, right? Reason being is everyone that's traded since there is, if nothing else, leaning against that with a stop. Let's say if they didn't have their stop here and they didn't have their stop anywhere else, once this, uh, once this, um, it's mislabeled, so it's really confusing me. Once this euro high is swept, then the any stops that were anywhere in this have been taken out that were short. So unlike maybe swing highs that are developing throughout the day, or swing highs that aren't on the edge of um that aren't on the edge of like of a balanced area or an area that we've traded inside of, that they would carry this would carry weight to look for the opportunity to risk off of that idea of a peekaboo that we talked about. We saw that Sunday night. That was a beautiful long trade, peaking just 10, 12 points below um, prior RTH low, and stopping everyone out that carried longs over the weekend. And then immediately a bid showed up. So in the same way, we peaked this euro high. we pull down. Now, starting with that idea that we've swept this liquidity, in theory, there would be people that would be looking for long rebids on that move. And there's nothing terribly wrong with that idea. And this is where knowing where potential is versus knowing where the market is going to go. This, if you're talking gain loss stuff, has some implications, but just for this set of work, um, this is where, like, how much of this move would we want to see retrace before we bid that? Right. And I think that's a good question. How much of this overall leg from this swing low all the way up would we want to see retraced before we rebid that? Looking at just the hourly, or how much of this swing low to this swing high, like how deep of a pullback is reasonable to rebid? And what we're saying is that generally speaking, we want to see half that move retraced. Want to see 60% of that move retraced. Want to see 70% of that move retraced. Anything inside of like mid to upper 70s, to me, that's like the sweet spot. Looking back over, and it's not magic. It's not because it's the 70% line. Oh my gosh. It's just, think of the times that you've been in a trade, like a nice long, and you keep moving your stop up and moving your stop up with every swing low. And then you think, oh, I'm going to add on the next swing low. So you just wait for any kind of pullback and you add. Market moves up a little bit more, does a deeper pullback, stops you out, and then continues on its way back up. So that liquidity sweep that happens is where we would want to be taking an opportunity. So that's where we don't have to know that the move is going to rebid for sure. What we want to do is be looking in the right area on a large time frame and then take that information down to a smaller one. So on this move right here, let's say from this this little internal like swing low to this swing high, we just use a simple little measuring tool, right? Just your little stock little retracement. And we don't even have to argue about, was that the right swing low to measure from? Whoops, push the wrong button. We're just going to go with the one that stands out, and that stands out to me, right? So for that move right there, we want to see this come down and stay into this area, and then that's where we have the potential to start looking on a smaller time frame for a rebid. Now, are there going to be scalpy long setups on a small time frame all up in here? Yes, for sure. And if this is a one-way train trend day and you're waiting for a deep pullback on the hourly to get long, you're going to be left at the altar. But that's why the skill set and the piece of the puzzle of identifying a trend is important on the intraday basis. So the only thing that would have me looking for longs up here would be if we were a no tick OR on ES and or NQ, whatever product you're trading. If we were above VWAP and hadn't traded back through it, if we hadn't made multiple trips through OR, obviously you can't have a no tick 30-second OR if you trade back through OR multiple times. If we had a nice smaller time frame set of single prints inside the OR that rebid, so without breaking the low of OR, we rebid the first semblance of aggressive bid that came in, then those start to tell a story that that we might want to like be a part of this move up. We might want to evaluate a small time frame setup and build off the opening momentum that's coming in. But as we, let's say we didn't, right? So as we pull back, this area, actually I'm going to mark it out with a different tool. This area is where we have to be patient and wait for price to come back to that spot. And that is, in a nutshell, the whole point of this is we have to be the kind of traders that are okay with missing a move. If this is going to be a simple guide for where does opportunity, where does potential lie? Potential on this move lies in two places. It lies there, and it lies on the peak of this swing. So these two, and again, you wouldn't have had that. You would have just had this. You'd said, okay, potential lies on a peak above this swing. If we peak that and get a sell opportunity, as soon as we start to suck back in and any kind of sell sets up, you can you can say whatever you want, but the potential in here for at least a rebid of this move is a real thing, because we're sweeping a euro high, taking stops, doing nothing more than popping liquidity, and then that is an area where there will be high potential. High potential for what? Two things. One, there's potential for it to continue and base and pull back of some sort like that. There's potential for it to peak above, pull back to there and go. And there's potential for it to do exactly what it did and push all the way down to challenge lower. The point that I'm making is sitting here staring at a 512 trade chart, trying to make whatever amount of money you want to make. I want to make 100 points or 50 points or 750 points. Trying to do that in this area, okay, in any of this right here, is just not as high a probability unless there's some other work, some other setup that you can lean on that doesn't take money out of your bank account. But trading to the long side inside of that purple box is a recipe for getting stopped out over and over. Again, unless you have some other tool or resource that you lean heavily on for continued momentum, new momentum, some type of delta trade setup, some type of key level. Like, for instance, if this was, if this was balance area low and we're looking to reclaim balance area low, rebid it and go, well, then, yeah, sure. Maybe you go down to a smaller time frame and you look for a smaller leg rebid and you try to find some context that builds for you to take that potentially that trade. Because again, we don't know right here that for sure this is going to happen. No one can guarantee that. We don't know for sure that it's not going to go up 300 points from there. But what we know is there is potential here, and there is a lot of potential here. And if we had some additional, if we were looking at a full picture of the market and talking about all the other things we look at, then sure, like maybe there could be a reason for something here. But we're keeping all of that off the table tonight, and we're just saying that it's not fun to be the guy trying to buy longs up here. And if that is you, then we've got to develop the trust in the idea of waiting for rebids, and we've got to develop the skill set of executing in that zone on a small time frame. Even if it means you have to work at it. Now here we lost that, right? Like that didn't rebid. So this is not a snap buy. This is just simply saying, in this area, I would be watching on a smaller time frame for an opportunity. And if I got a great long setup, I would at least think about it in there. Also, if I was paying attention to this sweeping euro highs and then immediately just having, intent sell side or potentially a short setup, where am I hoping to take this trade? Well, generally, I'm looking to be most of my risk off inside of 50 points on a general standard day, even if I don't, like, just on an average day. So let's say 20 to, what would that be? 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 10, 20. So that's 50 points right there. So, like, the other thing that I want to say is that we need to be paying ourselves. If we did take this opportunity, we need to pay ourselves through here, and then we need to reevaluate maybe with runners or whatever position size is left as we get to this area. But the goal for any seller that came in here, their goal Their goal is the local swing low on whatever time frame, or the most apparent swing low, like wherever this move started from, is the ultimate goal for that. So with a runner, and with no regard for sessions and day trade and being in and out and news, is it reasonable once this leg doesn't rebid to leave a runner and abandon the idea of any kind of bid and lean in on the short side? Well, yeah, we have a case building for a fail to gain, a liquidity sweep of euro highs, a fail to rebid in a place that is very reasonable to do so if this move is legit. And then if you go, okay, well, then where would the next place be for the buyers to step in? We would just go down to the swing low that initiated this entire move, and we'd say, okay, if they're gonna stick save it in a zone, that zone is gonna be in here. So then we're watching small time frame opportunities in here. Well, like there would have been a couple of decent trades. I mean that again, bidding, waiting for some kind of setup in there and bidding off of that. And again, there's other ways to do this. This is just a very simple, like, guardrails style of where is their potential and where should I be looking to execute. That spot would be in here. Well, this is a 50-point box. So like if we're executing in this area, well, again, we're not buying the first time it touches the top of the box with everything we've got, with every bullet. It just means that inside of here we sit up in the chair, we pay attention, and we watch the smaller time frames to give us something to build off of for the smaller time frames to set up a rebid. And then we watch delta, and we watch large market trade orders, and we watch the pace of tape and whatever else that you look at, or anything that you Frankenstein together that helps you initiate a trade. But those tools become immensely more profitable when we're executing them inside of areas that have the potential to give us a return versus executing them in random places on the chart that honestly don't hold that much potential. Now, once we peek through this, again, it's a swing low, right? And we've talked about this before. I know Flary has. We're tempted when we push into these swing lows to add extra, pile in short. This is the one that breaks and goes to zero. Like, I don't know what market you've seen over the last year, but that's usually not that hasn't been the story that's been told even on this pullback. It doesn't seem like the market is rewarding the idea of the breakdown trader or the breakout trader. So there's without the rest of price action on here for this day, we could have had 4 zones that we needed to pay attention to. And those 4 zones we could have come up with as soon as we pushed up and pulled back in. We could have measured this off, had a couple of spots. Even pre-market, we could have said, hey, we'd love to see this bid. Or maybe right after the market opens or right after lunchtime or whatever. The other thing that this, I think, lines up, I'm not going to get into all that. So once we take out this swing low, then where are our areas of potential the other way? Well, in my opinion, the areas of potential the other way, we would just kind of look at it the same way, right? Buyers.
Hey,
Go ahead.
before you go into the next set of that,
Yep.
so if you look to the left of that swing high that's mentioned to,
Here.
yeah, I'm saying to the left of that.
How much to the left here?
So I'm thinking more of the highs that come in that area, that are right below that swing, that major target bull side.
Yep.
So if you look in that area, we never swept those highs. We swept this high here at 420 or 430 or whatever it was. We never swept the highs from that consolidation on 8-8.
Yeah. So you're making the point that another piece of the puzzle to think of is what is inside of this leg versus what is like what you have labeled as like the major bull target, which would be to break this whole range right here. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no. So if you're looking on 8/8 in the morning, that consolidation fact
Yep.
that came in at like 440, 450,
Yeah.
we never took that high on that move.
You mean
We
this?
came and we
Yeah.
yeah we came and double tapped it
Yeah.
there. So like with those type of moves, and we did it actually on Tuesday, was it? Or we had the big. It was the day that we basically overnight we broke that 37, made a new low, and we came down and traded 35 and had the big push up. Pretty sure it's
Yeah.
right there.
Down here.
Yeah. So like like ideally, the way that I would trade that, and I'll post as you're going through it. I'll kind of post pictures, but like on a smaller time frame. So there's legs within legs, and I think that he's kind of mentioned that before. So there's a lot of the times where the ultimate target to take for buyers and sellers are swing low, swing highs. That's where liquidity is. Like that target up to that 440 mark. Um, I was long pre-market based off the 30 minute. The reason I was
Yep.
long pre-market based off the 30 minute was because of the liquidity grab pre-market on news, which we ended up taking the low and we rebid that low for the continuation higher. I'll post it in chat just so.
Okay. I was about to say I'm trying to find it, but you can just post it. That'd be helpful. Now, while you're doing that, the thing that I want to point out that everybody is probably thinking is, well, what time frame do you look at for that? Like, do you look at the 4 hour? Do you look at the daily? Do you look at the 1 hour? Do you look at the 30 minute? For me, where I want to do business is most often coming from 4 hour, 1 hour. Most often looking for 4 hour, 1 hour, and maybe 30 minute if there might be an opportunity inside of those. But the 1 hour, I mean, think about it, y'all. We're trading. I don't know what your average trade time is, but I mean, I feel like mine is kind of long. Um, Maybe longer than I don't like making a lot of decisions. I don't like buying and then selling and buying and selling. I like to take a trade that I can see through, and that's not everybody's style, but that's what I prefer and what works well for me. The more I'm trading like that, where I'm trading positions that are extended and I'm in them for a while, like my profitability goes through the roof, and my percentage of wins and everything if I'm in the trade for if we pass the is it 5 minute mark, I think is what it is. Like looking back over my stats for the year, if I'm in a trade for more than 5 minutes, they're ridiculously profitable compared to the other ones. Well, I don't want to take my larger market structure from a 5 minute chart. It's not as high probability. I want to go to a 1 hour or a 4 hour or a daily. Now those zones they get much bigger as you go up. And so then you look at a daily chart and it'll give you a huge fat zone. And then you go to a 4 hour chart and you kind of tidy that zone up a little bit because that tells a little bit more of the story. Then you look at a 30 minute and tighten that up. And this is one piece of the puzzle. That's the other thing. Like, this is one piece of the puzzle. I'm not like, I still look at TPO the same way. I blend this idea with like gaining and losing levels. That's another part that helps with the probability. But what I'm saying is, if gain loss stuff makes no sense to you and you struggle with that idea, and big picture market structure, you don't have a way for yourself to sit down and go, I have a good idea of where I want to execute today based on my work, and I have a perspective. If those are things that you don't have, what I'm saying is an accessible way to start to build some perspective on areas that have potential is the age old idea of trying to position yourself with the trend, but buying in a buying inside of a pullback, inside of a reasonable leg. in buying in a place where we've seen, where over the course of time, it just seems like that a move that retraces, 60 to 70%, and catches a bid is a move that is being confirmed by the general marketplace, by all the participants. And that if that's happening often enough that we've noticed it and picked up on it through time, like that's that's something that I think everybody could put in their toolbox. If you look at like this move here, like let's just take this for example. Now, this was I think this is RTH time. So like what would we be looking to be long here or short here coming into the open is like the question everybody wants to know. Well, like we just go back a little bit. What did we do here? Well, coming in, we would see that we swept, and I'm not going back any further. We swept this swing low, and this push up did not take this swing high. So who's winning? Sellers, even though they didn't like continue for 600 points, they won the battle here, which again, this would be, a place that we would want to be watching for. Do we push up and take this or not? And then, so that would be area of interest. And then this would be area of interest because it's the swing low. And then, since this move fumbled here, what it did do, I can tell you, is it swept the liquidity on a smaller time frame and would have been hard to hitch your wagon to. However, this move down is very much reofferable. And that's where Banks and I spent last Friday like hashing through all of this to kind of make it a little more accessible. The reason that it's reofferable is because the sellers won, like they're in control to the point where they can take the liquidity on the other side of a swing. Excuse me. So then, where are we looking to do business? Well, we got past the 50% mark, but we did not get back up into this area where we would be saying with this whole deal that this would hold the potential for a reoffer. Well, that in and of itself can clue you in. I would say that's an overly aggressive attempt to drill down lower. Once this swing low is made, this is an hourly swing low that's below this one. It was made coming into RTH. As soon as that is made and we push back up, two things are true. Now, I would say there's potential down in this area for the NQ special, we'll call it. And then this move didn't gain anything, but as soon as this move starts to hold, I would say, well, heck, where are we at on this move? Right? Like, where are we at on this move? As soon as this starts to pull back, I'd say, okay, what if they're going to defend this? Where's an area that would have potential? Well, somewhere in here would have potential. And you think like, well, how would you know to draw that? Well, we have, depending on how fast this happened, we have an hour's worth of time to evaluate. Sellers are in control. They got a little aggressive here. They swept this hourly swing high. Buyers were able to at least sweep this hourly swing high in one time framing. Well, they ended one time framing here. So you start to think like, at least there's potential here. And then as this starts to develop as a pullback, if they're going to rebid this move, where would they do it? Here. Well, I don't want to initiate a short in this area. In fact, since this area holds potential for a rebid, I kind of want to initiate a long in this area if there's tools confirming. And when I say tools confirming, I mean to distinguish the difference between this is a place that I just automatically pull the trigger, and this is a place that I go to my execution chart and the tool set that I would use to initiate and begin to watch for an opportunity. I can guarantee you that on a smaller time frame, this failed to break below something, and there was probably a leg of this move on a smaller time frame that was rebid or was rebid here. And then as you see the smaller time frame begin to set up by with rebidding by measuring the same way, it begins to it allows you to be a little bit flexible and to go, okay, we just rebid the 1 minute, we just or the 512 trade, we just rebid the 5 minute and the 1 minute, and looks like we got a chance to rebid whatever, we get back above this low. You begin to be able to tell the story. And so then if you initiated a trade in here, which this would have been like late day and then coming into overnight. So it's kind of weird. I should have done like an RTH only, but whatever. Where does this buyers that are saving this low, where do they want to get? And again, this helps with trade duration and trade potential. This trade is right as soon as you take any money off the table. But what your target is for, let's say, your runner or for a batch of ads that you got off on some other rebid, your goal is for that trade is here. And so then that swing high would become an area of potential. You just mark that. What is it an area of potential for? Well, it's a potential area to take profit. It's a potential area to look for one of those peekaboo type trades like this right here. Like this look, you go on guard for that right in here. But that's clearly not what sets up. So like we don't get this look, at least not by the close of the candle. We don't get this look between these two, which that's one thing that we could have marked out as well is watching that swing high, because on a smaller time frame, that is a rebid move that's a swing high, and this is sweeping smaller time frame liquidity only to pull back in and rotate down. Again, the small time frame can bait people into being breakout buyers, and the market just doesn't seem to reward that as much as it does a patient one. Let's look at, again, this move right here, which we're building into this story. This swing low right here, again, we would want to see that rebid, blah, blah, blah. We know that it didn't rebid. We also then would have the information that that is pulling back inside of an old swing high. And if you remember, we said like what we would want to see this, we'd want to see this move rebid somewhere in here, right? We'd want to see this leg be held up somewhere in here. So as this develops, where are we trading back down to? We're trading back down, which we already had this box drawn and I moved it off. We're trading back down into that area because we're on watch at swing highs for this look. Every swing high doesn't do that. That's what I'm admitting. I'm saying, like, of course not. But why can you not be watching for it to happen? Because when it does, the potential is huge. So again, you don't have to know what's going to happen. And I think that's a fear of a lot of traders is like, I want to know for sure what's going to happen. You need to be sized and managing risk to the extent that you're afforded the opportunity to be wrong. That being wrong on a trade doesn't blow you up, right? And as you start to hopefully develop your eye for looking for those swing highs and your ability to measure some of these moves, it begins to like keep you out of all the fray and build some opportunity. So once this doesn't rebid here, and again, remember we drew that big box there, then our next area of potential, of like real big potential, is this swing low. Well, lo and behold, look what happens. We would have had that box drawn, and we would have been on watch for some of NQ's stupidity, which I think is common to happen, and we get it. So what are we doing? Looking for small time frame opportunity or price risking? I mean, I think you could do either one. Price risking is a little like innovating a trade just on a line on the chart. It's not really my thing, but there was an opportunity most likely to take part in that, depending on what time it happened and all that stuff. And then as that moves up and you get, you don't win any big battles. We did fail here, and we did peak this, but again, we found a responsive bid. So what is your thought? Like, okay, well, if we hold in this area, I just copied the wrong thing. If we hold in this area, if sellers come down here and they can't get it done, this area is already used, so we erase that. If sellers were to come back down and fail right here, who is looking to be shorting into this, and who is looking to be long or scaling a short if you were somehow managed to swing a short from up here? Where people get hurt and where accounts get screwed is they're shorting in this area. And what I'm saying is this is an area of potential, but I don't think I think it should be, at least as we work through this, fairly obvious that the potential is for a reversal. So if I did manage a short here, I don't want to be so greedy as to think that I'm going to hold 6 or 12 contracts through this. I don't have to know it's going to reverse here, but if I were short, I surely know that there's potential here. If I were to not do anything with this and wait for this and then rebid this, I've sat on my hands for 3 hours. But when I take this trade, what is my target? Well, my area for potential is kind of twofold, and they start to get close together, and I get that. But I'm just saying, if you want to be looking in the right places, in my opinion, this is one of the more accessible ways to look in the right places. I think this could be a place that you would possibly be looking for that has potential. Oh, let me erase that. Let's just drag this one down. Right? But inside of that, where could we sweep internally inside of the move without really, getting any continuation? Well, nothing says trade through me like almost equal highs. If I were to get long here, the only other thing I would be looking at is this area. So the reoffer of that move down and a peak above these swings to then begin to look for a short. Now the discipline comes when this happens. You're not just banging shorts for no reason. Again, the peekaboo trades, lowest probability, not lowest probability, hardest to do because you almost have to be snapping in. That rebid or reoffer is a little more reasonable. These sellers, what was their goal when they sold here? And this is just hard and fast. Like their goal, no matter what you think about anything, their goal was to break this swing low. They failed because we caught strong bid here. So this is now not nearly as strong of an area of opportunity because this move didn't gain anything. Like they didn't win the fight, at least on the first try. And I would say first try, best try. Like the first shot at it's the one I'm going to lean on. I don't want to see a wick here and another wick here and another wick here. I mean, if it's a super key level, then sure, but that I don't think that was shaping up. That was balance area low. Well, I don't know if it was balance area low then, but it was a balance area low at some point. But the point is, they failed, and actually, they failed there. So this might be target for longs, for your long trade if you got into one, as lower time frame confirmed in here or in the body of this wick as it confirmed. And then we want to scale through here, and we want to hold runners to try to go challenge this 247. So as we come up through here, we're long, knowing that we need to ultimately get at least above that, right? That's the next area of potential. Well, we don't lean on that reoffer. We peak these highs and do kind of almost nothing with it. This is middle of the night, by the way, and then come back down. Well, this move got a little something for it. Not a strong swing high, but it broke that swing high. Didn't break this one. So we don't know that it's going to rebid or not rebid in the same way that we'd want to be cautious in here. We want to measure this swing low where buyers most recently stepped up, and we want to measure it up to this high. And we're going to go, okay, ask ourselves the question, if we were smart and patient, where would there be potential? Well, there would be potential for a rebid in a lot of places, but we're going to say that the potential for the rebid is going to be out of that 60 to 70% of where the buyers most recently stepped in. Where did they most recently step in? Here. So we measure up to there. They got a little something for it. They really didn't take the cake. And then think of this. They really need to go get all this. So this is all still offerable from if we went up one time frame, but we're not doing that. I just want you to get the feel of what we're looking to do. So we come down. Let's say we shorted back below this because we were like, well, dang, they were aggressive and ran through it, but they got back below it. Where do we want to short to? Well, we want to be scaling, but we want to be scaling through here, but we need to get through this, and then we need to get through this. But really, sellers need to get through that. So once they take this internal swing low off of this move, then what can we start to look for? And again, this would have been let's take that off for now. But there was a box there, right? So this moves down. They don't peak this swing low, so it would be hard to say, oh, I'm going to reoffer that. But I assume if we measured it, and if you were banks, you were probably like, well, you didn't even get to there, so that move was kind of lame. So it is reofferable. They do go into the area of potential. And again, we don't have to know what they're going to do when they get there. We lean on smaller time frame for it. And then we move down, target, ultimate target. Once we take this ultimate target, then it gets into the Sunday night session, which we had on watch. If you scroll up in Market Outlook or Trading Chat, you'll see where I was talking about this as a possibility because this was an area with high potential. It obviously played out, and Banks made the great astute point that they broke this swing high that brought them down here, and they broke this on this leg up. And so on the rebid, this was either rebiddable or, this is why you don't have to know what's going to happen. You just have to know how to, you just have to know what areas to watch for. We had the old swing low. I would say that was watch forable. And we had this swing low, right? So like we want to be paying attention in this area when they stack up like that, especially for potential. Do we know that this was going to happen? No, but we do know that these buyers were not playing around because they broke like two sets of local swing highs. So the two places again would be down here, or if we rebid it here, which, that's a big area. Rebid, that's a big spot to gauge interest. Now you would have probably gone to a small time frame, caught a opportunity here, possibly got some scales off. That's okay. You get stopped out through the open. But again, on the open, they push all the way down to overnight, almost overnight low, and they screw the pooch completely. We were watching for overnight lows, overnight highs, Asia highs, Euro lows. We're always watching for those to be areas of potential anyway. So we're already looking for the possibility of this failing. When it does, we have to be quick to the trigger. What's the goal of the buyers right here? The goal of those buyers, maybe here, first goal. Maybe here, second goal. Maybe in here, third goal. So if we did get to garner along somewhere, because what we know is while they pushed through where we thought was reasonable, the market often does that. We take a stop, or maybe we got two sets of scales and then we stopped out. And then as soon as we recover, what do we work like? Let's go. Like we failed an overnight low, and we're just coming off of making a local swing high. We bid this up. Scales. This one had a lot of meat on the bone, right? But we're not looking to continue to short this. Like the seller's ability to continue through lows is starting to fall apart. It also has if you're one of like a chart person with the head and shoulders deal, although I don't really dig that, but it was a fail to lose as well as almost a peekaboo trade. And so I'm not looking to short that. Unless, I mean, the only place I'd be looking to short it from would be if they did some funny business off of this swing high, or if they were going to reconfirm their commitment to pushing the market down within a reasonable amount, which would have been in there. Now, I don't know how that developed, but it doesn't look like there would have been a great short setup in there, to be quite honest. I think this is, I think I've rolled through enough of this. We can keep going, and I'm glad to. But really, what I'd like is maybe just to have some people ask some questions. What about this doesn't make sense? How is this? This, I don't want this to be like, oh, you just look through an old chart, draw all these lines, and act like it's perfect. Like, I mean, we've executed in light of this, generally speaking, for a little while now, without giving like this exact run through of the method of looking at it. So, what is the swing high? What is the swing low? And we don't need to be fearful here. We need to be paying attention and sharp. We don't need to be fearful here. We need to be pay attention and sharp. Now, if this thing goes 50 points below this, like that's making a new swing low and making a new swing low aggressively and like getting it done, right? We're looking for like 12 to 17 points, 12 to 20 points, like maybe not, yeah, like in the teens. When we're looking for these kind of peekaboo trades, we're not looking for, it's we're not looking for a wick like that. I mean, that would be fine, I guess, but like you can't just snap by in here. But if you see the momentum stalling, the way this played out in Globex, I mean, I was posted in the chat. If you scroll up through trading chat, you see it. Like I noticed the potential. I posted about it in chat. I think CP took the trade. I think Banks got in on that trade. I was in that trade all night. I slept on it, woke up to being filled somewhere up here. It's not reverse engineering on a live stream to make us look like we know what we're doing. You guys have been around long enough to know that. Like we take stops, we miss trades, but we need to be looking in the areas that have potential. And I just think this is a really clean way to focus in the right spots. You're going to have 2 or 3, 4 spots. Then you take that. Yeah, well, yeah, we've done some of that as well. But for the sake of this, I just want people understanding where are the places that hold potential. I think one thing that just to say to all of y'all is like, I pride myself on having a good finger on the pulse of where the market is going. I think with the work in TPO and balance and value, that's a big part of that, right? But you guys have also been around where I'm trying to buy a balance area low and get ran over, take multiple stabs at it, get only one set of scales, things like that. And if I go back and look at like, that is an area, a zone that I should pay attention to, but it would have a lot more oomph to it if it also lined up with the idea of a patient buyer waiting for them to come back. And yes, targets, we're not saying it stops right here or whatever. Like we're trading from a place of potential out to targets, and we want to be in line with the bigger time frame as we do that. So I'm going to stop talking. anybody can unmute. Banks, you can throw in some more commentary. You could share screen if you want to talk about maybe the smaller time frame side of this. So pick like that.
Yeah.
Pick that like spot from today. What was that? That was this Hobag right here. I was looking to short this today because of this swing high measured down, or the swing high, whatever we were measuring down. When did the market open here? So this sweep of this area up to here, I was looking for shorts today, and we talked about this in the chat, and I think we posted pictures of it, talked through it. But I was looking to be short in this area, leaning on this continuation move down, sweeping through these lows, blah blah blah. But Banks, if you wanted to screen share now, and I'll cut, we can leave mine up or whatever, but jump over to yours and talk about how the small time frame is when you're trying to get positioned for that, and then maybe talk about that late day rebid failure, the failure to rebid, and why like that long side trade, like there was that idea of rebidding that was tough, a tough trade to take, in light of like this, because of the fact that they hadn't gained anything, they hadn't got through anywhere that mattered.
Can you guys see my screen? I don't know if you can check that, Bob, or not, but yeah. So kind of coming into today's market, kind of going through just the overall picture of where we started. I really wanted to see us, go target some of these areas, but I was being a little bit hesitant today just because of the fact that we did have FOMC. We did have some opportunity below us, just in the sense of these swing lows that we came back and kind of targeted. If you look at the overall picture of where the market has been, we've just been trending down. And every single and the way I like to measure it, this is a 30-minute. The way I like to measure it is usually by legs. So like, for instance,
I can't see your stream. Can anybody else see it, or is it just me?
I was just about to type a message and ask it.
Yeah.
I don't see it either.
It's just two squares circling each other.
That is weird.
Yeah, you made
Hold on, let me
Yep.
start it back up.
They're poly. No, never mind.
They're squares that are also rotating.
yeah.
I was gonna
they
make a
are.
polyamorous joke, but
Oh, there you
Weird
go.
math.
Sweet. All right.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
All right.
Yeah,
Talk us through
so
it.
just So the way that I like to measure these are kind of by individual legs. So kind of like how we were talking about on the larger time frame, the daily, 4-hour, hourly. Like even when you get into these smaller time frames, so this is the 30-minute right here. I'll play this as like individual legs. So like the way that I'll mark these is I'll kind of mark these from like this high to this low and see kind of how it plays. Obviously, you don't get a reoffer in this move, but if you keep tracking it down, the reoffer comes in. It's just a matter of when and where. Now this reoffer is going to be on a larger time frame. So like on these moves that, like, let's say the trend start of a move like this area here, a lot of the times this doesn't reoffer or rebid depending on where you're at until we tested it like on a bigger pullback, per se. Because in essence, the way that I see it is, they got to do some work to get, I guess where they want to go. So like on this move here, you basically come out and we basically reoffered this move here. If you basically track this move, it's a reoffer of this larger time frame. But again, we didn't reoffer this initiative move. So this whole time down, we've just been reoffering on little time frames. Like, well, we could go down and do this all day long. Reoffer. Let me see. Let me keep going. That, I mean, damn near reoffered. So I mean, like I'm saying, like on these smaller time frames is the way that I get positioned for these trades. But like today was a little bit harder because so what just happened? Lost my stuff in July. Hold on a second.
Data feed woes.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, so kind of getting into today, you know, like on Mike, we really wanted to see a push up into this reoffer spot, and see how they would play it basically. So this area here, if you just keep going down, this is a reoffer here. Basically, this leg for this move to be a continuous move to the downside, the way that I would trade this is being on the lookout in this area as an opportunity to, you know, to rebid this area. And that's exactly what happened. Now, if you go down into a smaller time frame, that area became a little bit trickier today. So this same retracement off of this move, you know, you basically were able to take this trade, and I think Baba took it probably 3-4 times. But this area right here, if you're looking at,
took that trade 4 times today.
and if you're looking at this, I'm looking at these as like smaller time frame swing highs. This is on the 5-minute, but again, like we didn't take it on this move here. Realistically, like this area probably was going to get taken before this move initiated, which is what happened. Now it's just a matter of this move basically played once, twice, 3 times above that little swing high on the 5-minute. Now, again, when you're looking at the 30-minute and the 5-minute, you wouldn't even have seen this swing high. That's where I think like getting into the multi time frames kind of helps, getting into position on these moves. But again, like even on these moves here, like getting into a 1-minute, there's reoffers and rebids in this area, and we did rebid this quite a bit, on this move up. So this rebid, you're just looking at this move here. We basically went from reoffer to rebid, and that's the way I normally will trade these. Is like I know where the opportunities are. So when I'm, you know, if I'm getting into a see on the same screen on if I'm short here and I know where the rebid is coming into this area, because I know where this opportunity lies. Now, you know, once this kind of sets up and starts to come down, I know where I'm drawing this rebid opportunity. And I know going into that area, I want to be not flat, but I want to be getting down to runners. Like even on a smaller 5-minute, because I know the larger time frame here is down, but at the same time, we are, you know, we are changing structure a little bit on the smaller time frames for the move up. So again, if this was to rebid and come into this area, which we did, and take out this high, that's a hard area to just be holding in this area. So like a lot of times I'll be cutting into a runner into the rebid zones, or reoffer zones, and then basically moving my stop to break even, which I think that's what probably Baba did, if I had to guess.
Yeah, when
we came up
to that 30, what is it, like 25 to 35 or whatever, looking at a smaller tick chart, I took it like the first time, and each time I was able to get some scales off, but that was one where it's like the smart thing to do is keep taking like Flary's done this like a bunch of times in the past, especially when we used to trade together a lot more. He's like, you know, just keep taking it until it doesn't work anymore. And like, so I think I took that middle peak, and
this
then
area.
yeah, your cursor when you do that, it's like way off from where you're. I
Really?
know what you're trying to circle, but it's like up in the top left hand corner. It's weird. But
That's
yeah,
really weird.
yeah, I took that one and scaled in, but to the lower time frame rebid. Took the next one, scaled it down, scaled again. Took the middle one, the lower high, the first lower high, kind of that looks like the middle part of a W, and scaled it again and scaled through that breaking of that low, and then I was like, okay, this is the one. And then they actually, so I'd already taken it 3 times. The fourth time, I got in on that lower high, and they no, to the left, like go back to the swing high that you were like right up the one at the top of that, and then
Yeah,
down.
I'm over in OR right now
Yeah. Oh well.
on my
You guys
cursor.
know what I'm saying. I took the reoffer um on that move up, and that one I did. I don't know if I got a set of scales off on that one, and then I like stopped out at entry, and then they just nastily, and as what as only NQ can do, peaked that middle swing high, and then I just slammed right back in as soon as we pulled back below it. So looking at it again, an area of potential, that middle swing high. If you draw a line over off that middle swing high, I was watching after they stopped me for a peak of that, but not taking the ultimate swing high, viewing that as another area of potential. And then that trade really developed throughout the afternoon. I was in that for a little while because I scaled like I normally would. Other than I felt very confident that we'd take the lows, so I wanted to have a little more meat on the bone for that move. But I also wanted to be smart that they had bid that pretty aggressively, so I was probably to half position. I was 2/3 off where I would have normally been like down to one runner. So I held like a third of the position a little heavier. But yeah, and what you're doing right there, that was the trade where you had the opportunity to add. And because I wasn't behind the computer, but that would have been your first chance on a small time frame to reoffer what looks like strength to a lot of people with the anticipation of that move lower. So yeah, and now you're just showing us how you trade, which is which is all these nasty little bangers that you take with 50 lots.
Well, I mean that's where this like it comes into play where if this is going to be a continuous move, like these have to reoffer these areas. Now, like when this starts to change, when you start to see this low right here and this area not get that initiative push and we start to trend a little bit, then again, like if you're looking at this time frame, this move here came in from, like, if I had to guess, I would assume a 5 minute. Like this move here, and this was what was kind of hard too at the afternoon because this was the news, or the FOMC news. So, in reality, we started to change a little bit of structure here on the 5 minute by taking this high. So, in reality, I would have thought that this area, which we did get kind of a rebid here, we kind of came all the way down here and popped up a little bit. This area basically gave way, and we kind of did what we do on NQ a lot, which is basically test these lows, and then this opportunity basically came up to a new high. But again, if you're looking at the normal picture, and that's kind of where I got a little bit sidetracked a little bit, was just the kind of the larger time frame is key. Obviously, we're still in a trend down. We didn't get up to the reoffer spot at this this move here that kind of took this high. And I'm sorry about my cursor, but it is what it is. But this move here, basically, we took the new low, grabbed liquidity, and then we came up and reoffered this move. I am very surprised that we didn't get more of a bid from this low. But again, I mean, we kind of had a halt where that price was, where you would have been trying to bid this. Again, once we kind of went through this, we just fucking dumped, is what it is. But there was really like on the smaller time frames, you could actually start to see this start to fail through here. And really once these are tested, like the first time, like if we pop back out and come back in, those usually don't hold. At least from my experience, just kind of going through and looking at this on a smaller time, especially on the smaller time frames. On the larger time frames, yeah, I mean, you had the area up here at the 140s, 130s. It definitely played on the larger time frame. Again, like I really think if we would have got much higher than where we were, this thing would have been a runner to the upside all day. Because if you're looking at the larger time frame, you're kind of getting into this situation where um, this kind of had to hold. If you get much above and take this liquidity, this has been tested. This has been tested. It's really been kind of tested on these moves that have gone up. So I would assume that we probably would have came up and took out some sort of liquidity here, and even maybe we settled in this area, but I assume that we probably would have went another 100 points higher. But that's kind of like the line in the sand from what happened today. The way that I would start to like look at this too, like so here, and this is just all liquidity, like the green and red are just liquidity marks. So like this is high, this is a low. We basically just came and double tapped this low. So like once these are taken, like what Baba was talking about, I'll switch over to like a 5 minute, and I'll kind of look to see. Now Globex isn't going to be super easy, but let's just say that we took this low. This move, you want to see some initiation, and you want to see some sort of swing high get taken for me to feel comfortable. Then I think once this is taken, because your target up here
Hey,
is to come take out.
can you draw a line on the swing high you're talking about so that we know which one? Because your cursor's still being weird. Oh my God. Your mouse is about a third of the screen to the left of that, but now I know what you're talking about. So you want to see that swing high taken
Yeah,
before, yeah.
because that's start of a change of structure. Now the way that I would trade this, and the way that I would trade this is kind of this low is your initiation move. So this move,
Can you
you want to
can
see
you
that
also mark?
disbursement up.
Can you also draw a line on the low or a box?
This is the low from tonight. So the way that I would trade this is you kind of had this move up, and to be honest, like this move would have been fairly quick. This did give a rebid here, by the way. But the way that I would have traded this, I would want to see this high taken, and then basically looking for rebids. So this was already tested, so I would have been looking for this here in this area. And you know what your risk is. Your risk is basically this swing low, this move. If you're bidding here, your idea of this move is to come take out there, and then potentially here. But again, like on the smaller time frames, you're able to find a lot more of these rebid, reoffer zones. Again, you got to know what you're trading, because on these zones, the larger time frames are going to be more, I would say, more accurate. But again, like the way that I would normally trade this high, so this is technically a high to me. So it's a lower high. But so this is the swing high, but if you're wanting to get kind of down in and this is kind of, I believe I picked this up from Flurry, but I was actually short tonight, just based off of this. Going into this reoffer zone here, smaller time frame, we swept liquidity on this move here up in this area, so I kind of got short and kind of targeted these lows. So that's where the opportunity lies, where you can actually have kind of a set idea of where you want to be and kind of what you're targeting. And to be honest, if you don't get it, you don't get it. But the reoffer zones and rebid zones paint a very clean picture of, at least in my opinion, um, you know, where you need to be thinking about if you're in a long and you're coming into a reoffer spot, even on a smaller time frame, you want to start to think, my opinion, if you're getting into that reoffer spot, is, hey, is this an area that you think can hold? Why don't we pay ourselves as targets going into this area? If we have, the ability to have runners to go target that high, I think it's a great thing to have. But again, I mean, there's some of these reoffer rebid spots that are going to be 50, 100 points. So if you're getting into that area and you're into a spot where you're into a pretty big reoffer spot a rebid spot, you're up 50 points. I mean, I don't see any reason why you can't pay yourself along the way, kind of like what you were saying. I think these paint a great picture on targets, to be honest. It paints a good picture on opportunity to get into positions, but I think it paints a better picture on where your targets, you know, at least peeling core or at least taking something off into that area.
Yeah,